Progress.
Hello, my name is Jeff Robinson, and I am so sorry that I can't be there with you in person, but I am so happy to have this opportunity to just address you folks shortly and tell you how much I am looking forward to the results of this conference and how much respect and love I have for all of you. You know, the title of this conference, Speaking Truth to Power, A New Day and a New Way, speaks to me at all kinds of levels, because we all know what poverty looks like in America and the consequences of that. And we all know what the criminal legal system in America looks like and the consequences of that. And NLADA has a 100+ year mission to create and improve access to counsel systems by securing justice in courtrooms and by ensuring legal representation that secures better outcomes for low-income people. That's what NLADA is about. And that mission requires a constant evaluation of our work. And I can't think of a better way to center that than with the words of Charles Hamilton Houston, one of the greatest civil rights lawyers in American history. And what you're about to hear is something that he recorded in December of 1949. This is a man who won 5 cases in front of the Supreme Court under separate but equal, getting Black people into higher institutions of higher learning. And pressing the law, pushing it beyond where it would normally want to go. This is what Charles Hamilton Houston had to say about the work that he's doing and the work that we're doing.
And also, I regard what I am doing and my work as a lawyer not as an end in itself, but simply as the means of a technician probing in the courts, which are products of the existing system, how far the existing system will permit the exercise of freedom before it clamps down. And I have seen several instances as to the limitations on which the existing system, as represented by its courts, will go.
We've got to be probing the legal system to figure out just how much justice we can wring out of that system. And that is a constant process. One thing that I think you'll be discussing is the concept of what we call social movements and social movement lawyering versus the concepts of being a criminal defense lawyer or a civil legal aid lawyer and representing individual clients. Is it really either or? Because I think we tend to think of movement lawyering, if you will, as going in one direction, and individual lawyering, representing individual clients, going in another direction, where what I really think is, are there some places where they are unique? Absolutely. But there's a whole lot of places where they overlap, and that's where we need to be probing as we look for our strategies moving forward. Where missions meet, you know, NLADA and the National Criminal Defense College have missions that you could really just put together very easily. You look at that NLADA mission, and then you look at the National Criminal Defense College mission, pursuing justice by preparing defense counsel to recognize and confront racism and bias in the criminal legal system. And if we were to combine those, we could just get rid of the word criminal because it's the criminal and civil legal system. So in order to accomplish securing justice in courtrooms and representation that gets better outcomes, we have to confront racism and bias in the legal system. And this is just an example of how thinking about individuals versus community can become blurred, and how we need to think about them as a unified whole, at least in a number of significant areas. University of Virginia used the 2010 census to create a map of the United States, and they overlaid it with different colored dots, one dot for each person responding to the census. They call it the racial dot map. And this is what the map of the United States looks like. You can see that Black Americans are represented by green, and you can see the plethora of Black Americans in the South and Southeast and Midwest, but in the southern part of the country. And you can zoom in to look at cities or smaller communities, or zoom out to look at the country. One of the things that the people who did this found as they were zooming in is they were coming to places in the middle of seemingly nowhere that had this whole plethora of green dots that just seemed to not fit anywhere. And of course, they were prisons. So our individual clients that we are representing, we may be representing as individuals, but they end up in communities of incarcerated people. And those communities of incarcerated people have concerns that mesh across the spectrum. We need to be thinking about that as we are thinking about our work. We have to reevaluate our practices in light of information we learn. And as we confront more and more about the truth of our history, as we learn more, it gives us more ammunition to go into the system and to challenge these things. And so I've heard social movement lawyers define what they do, and thinking about their definitions and NLADA, I just want to challenge y'all to consider these things, to be grounded in a place of humility that recognizes lawyering as one of multiple strategies necessary to advance a social movement. We as criminal defense lawyers, as civil legal aid lawyers, can be involved in those movements with our clients, figuring out how and where and to what limit is the thing that we have to do, instead of just saying, oh, that's different, we're not going to engage there. To act from a place that affirms the intersectional humanity of the whole person and entire communities in order to build movements together, understanding, as I think we all do, that our clients have worth, intrinsic worth and incredible worth, and seeing them as part of a community of value is critical to the kind of world that we want to live in. And having to practice courage and be willing to relinquish our privileges in order to act and stand up for justice. If you will think about these concepts as you consider the things you're going through in the conference, I think it will be very helpful. So let's focus on the overlap instead of the places where there appears to be no overlap. This is a simple but profound statement. If we are going to move for more racial justice in the criminal legal system and the civil legal system, we can't stay where we are. We have to decide we're not willing to stay with the way things are. So what do you know about the local and/or state history of anti-Black racism where you practice? And if you educate yourself about that, what might you be able to do with that information? What we risk by going down this road are angry judges, because they're not going to like to get confronted, even respectfully, with issues of race and racism. We will risk angry prosecutors or angry civil litigators, especially if they're Black, because you can't talk about racial prejudice to me. I'm Black. That means I'm immune from having this kind of discussion. Sorry, that's not the way the world works. And you may even have an angry boss. And so the question is, why did we go into this work? And going back to the mission statements, I think it can tell us that we can navigate these problems, but avoiding these problems means letting our clients down and failing to push for more justice in the system in the United States. So I want to leave you with a couple of messages. This message from Charles Wright and the Watts 103rd Street Rhythm Band. This is about what we are doing, the substance of our work to get more justice for our clients. It's not whether a judge or a prosecutor or somebody else looks at us and says, I like what you're doing. Think about it like this.
It's not what you look like when you're doing what you're doing. It's what you're doing when you're doing what you look like you're doing. Express yourself.
It's not what you look like. It's not whether judges and prosecutors and other lawyers are telling you, you do a really good job. We really like your arguments. It's not what you look like when you're doing the work. It's what you're doing when you're doing the work that counts. And this is the last thing I want to leave you with. An incredible podcast about jury selection in America. And this deals with the case of Batson versus Kentucky. And you're about to hear James Batson describe how the error in his case was preserved.
What's important for our story is to know that James Batson is sitting there in the room as all of this is happening.
And I'm like, just completely, they struck all the blacks off the jury pool. It ain't right. And I told my lawyer, I said, you object to that,
Lawyer says, why would I object? James said, because it's not fair.
And he said, no, that's a long-standing rule.
He's allowed to do that.
And he can strike whoever he want.
Was your lawyer white or was he black?
He was white.
And was the judge white or black?
He was white.
And aside from those 4 people that had just been struck off the jury,
everybody in the courtroom was white.
So again,
told my lawyer to object.
And again, the lawyer says,
he said, no, I told you, you can't object to this. I said, what do you mean you can't? You work for me, you do what I say, you object anyway. I don't care if it's a long-standing rule. Object. And he did. And it all came behind that one objection.
That lawyer did not have the courage to confront racism as he saw it happening in the courtroom. We cannot be the kind of lawyers that have to have our clients preserve records in a courtroom. Long-standing rule to me means something that needs to be looked at and challenged. So finally, Cornel West and Roberto Unger, 2 incredibly intelligent and deep thinkers, have said this: hope is more the consequence of action than its cause. And that's an eloquent statement, but for me, I need to make it more simple. Hope doesn't create action. Action creates hope. Go into this conference intending to come out with different tools, with new ways of challenging the injustice in our system. I thank you all for listening, and I hope you have the best and most productive conference possible. Thank you very much.